Στη δική μας ενότητα ερχόμαστε να συστηθώ. Είμαι ο Θανάσης Κουιντζής, διευθύνων σύμβουλος του ομίλου Κουιντζή, μέλος του Διοικητικού Συμβουλίου του Ελληνοαμερικανικού Επιμελητηρίου και μέλος της Επιτροπής Αγροτεχνολογίας του Επιμελητηρίου. Σήμερα θέλω να σας καλωσορίσω στο ένατο συνέδριο αγροτεχνολογίας και το πρώτο ψηφιακό, που έρχεται και ενώνει τέλεια με την προηγούμενη ενότητα που είχε να κάνει με την ψηφιακότητα. Η δική μας θεματολογία θα μας πάει λίγο αλλού. Θα δούμε το κομμάτι της κλιματικής αλλαγής. Θα δούμε ένα πολύ ιδιαίτερο κομμάτι που θα μας απασχολήσει όχι μόνο για την γεωργία, όχι μόνο για τον πρωτογενή τομέα, αλλά για την ευρύτερη κοινωνία, για τη ζωή μας στο αύριο. Εκεί πέρα επιλέξαμε να έρθουμε σε επαφή και να δούμε μια χώρα η οποία έχει δώσει πολύ δύσκολες εξετάσεις σε ένα ιδιαίτερο κλίμα, όπως είναι αυτό της Μέσης Ανατολής, η χώρα του Ισραήλ. Άλλωστε, τα επιμελητήριά μας αρχές του έτους έχουν υπογράψει μια συνθήκη και αυτό είναι ένα εξαιρετικό timing για να αξιολογήσουμε την εμπειρία. Να πάμε σε ένα κλάδο, λοιπόν, να πάμε στο πρωτογενή τομέα του Ισραήλ, που πραγματικά το Ισραήλ, αν και νεοσύστατο κράτος, έχει δώσει πολύ μεγάλες εξετάσεις επιτυχώς και έχει καταφέρει τον πρωτογενή τομέα και ειδικά παίρνοντας αφορμή από το προηγούμενο πάνελ όλες τις αδυναμίες μας, που είμαστε πολλά χρόνια και ταλαιπωρούμαστε και τα λέμε και γνωρίζουμε ακριβώς χοντρικά τι πρέπει να κάνουμε όλοι οι εμπλεκόμενοι, έχει κατορθώσει τον πρωτογενή τομέα να τον αξιοποιήσει και να τον κάνει ένα επιτυχές project και να μπορέσει να μεταλαμπαδεύει την τεχνογνωσία σε άλλες χώρες. Έτσι λοιπόν, σήμερα, και θα θέλουμε να ευχαριστήσουμε την Πρεσβεία του Ισραήλ για την μεγάλη συμβολή, ώστε να έχουμε τον Dr. GIDON TOPEROFF μαζί μας, με μια ιδιαιτερότητα όμως λόγω μιας αλλαγής του προγράμματος. Ο Dr. TOPEROFF έχει μαγνητοσκοπήσει το case study που θα μοιραστεί μαζί μας, ένα αξιόλογο και πολύ ενδιαφέρον δεκάλεπτο με πολύ ωραία πράγματα, και δυστυχώς δεν θα είναι εδώ πέρα για τις ερωτήσεις. Οπότε εγώ θέλω να κάνω μια αναφορά στον Dr. GIDON TOPEROFF, ο οποίος με επίκεντρο την κλιματική αλλαγή και την βιώσιμη διατροφή, όπως και τη βιώσιμη κατανάλωση των φυτοφαρμάκων, είναι από τους κεντρικούς συμβούλους του Υπουργείου Γεωργίας του Ισραήλ και έχει μια πολυετή πείρα σε θέματα ίδρευσης, τα οποία θα μας παρουσιάσει. Δυστυχώς, σε αυτό το τόσο ενδιαφέρον κομμάτι δεν θα έχουμε την ευκαιρία να κάνουμε ερωτήσεις, αλλά είμαι σίγουρος ότι θα μας δοθεί σε κάποια άλλη φάση η ανταλλαγή απόψεων και διαλόγων. Σας ευχαριστώ. Προχωράμε στο βίντεο.
Hello, everybody. I'm so happy to be a guest of the American Hellenic Chamber of Commerce in this agrotechnology conference. Unfortunately, I won't be able to take part on the day of the conference, but I'm happy that I have a chance to talk to you about sustainable agriculture and water use in a changing climate, and examples from Israel agriculture experience. My name is GIDON TOPEROFF. I work for the Israel Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, and I'll tell you a bit about the work of me and my colleagues in the ministry and in the Israel Meteorologic Service. So a little bit about our agriculture. Israel, as you can see on the right, is our climate is Mediterranean to semi-arid to arid. The rainiest regions get 1,000 millimeters per year, but the driest regions are below 50 or around 20 millimeters per year, with no rain for a large part of the year. We have an annual net water deficit. In other words, there's more evaporation than rainfall in all areas in Israel. The economic feasibility of agriculture relies on irrigation, but we only have enough irrigation water to supply for about 50% of agricultural land. And an important word that I'll increase on later is that we're using more and more non-fresh water for irrigation. So out of 20,000 square kilometers, only about 90% of the land is agricultural land, which is not a lot relative to other countries. Of this land, 420,000 hectares are arable land. In these we grow about 3/4 of the land is open fields, and about 1/4 is orchards, and the rest are flowers and vegetables grown under protected growing in greenhouses. Out of this land, about half is rain-fed and the rest of it is irrigated. One main shortage is our agricultural land. And if this graph shows different countries, Greece is one of them, I don't know if you can see here, and it shows the amount of arable land in hectares per person. In Israel, we are here with only a fracture of land to feed each person, and I must say a lot of the food is imported, but most of the fresh fruit and vegetables, milk produce, chicken and eggs are grown in Israel, and other food is imported. So some future challenges, worldwide global challenges, just to mention quickly: a growing population all over the world requiring more and more food, degradation of ecosystems, which is a problem in itself, but also influences agriculture, exploitation of resources, including land, including water, and ecosystems, which we mentioned, and climate change that I'll talk about a little bit more. So climate change is a result, or at least the part of climate change which is handmade, is a result of the increased greenhouse effect. The greenhouse effect is very important for our living on this planet, but due to increased emission of greenhouse gases, our Earth, our atmosphere is becoming warmer and warmer, differences in precipitation, more droughts and more extreme events. Just to give this quickly. So under climate change, we talk about two things. One is mitigation of climate change by reduction of greenhouse gases, and the other is adaptation to the results of climate change, because we know that even if as humanity, we are able to reduce greatly the emission of greenhouse gases over the next decades, we still have this change, this increase of greenhouse gases, which will make our climate warmer and with more extreme events. So in Israel, since our agriculture is also not producing so much greenhouse gases and is also very sensitive to climate change, our main focus is on adaptation to climate change, and I'll show you a few measures of this, but focusing on the water sector. So all around the world, this is from Europe. We can see on the top right the economic consequences of droughts in Europe. Well, Israel and Europe agriculture have different definitions for drought. We are used to having very long dry months. Some places in the western North Europe, even 3 or 4 weeks without rain is considered a drought. But what we can see is that with climate change, the economic losses because of droughts is increasing and is predicted to increase even more. we can see that one of the main potentials or places where the practice can be improved is water management and using more water for irrigation, as shown in this paper. And as a result of this, just in the past half year, 6 months or so, the European Union has brought out a new regulation, water reuse for agricultural irrigation, which was adopted by the Council. So this is just one example of the fact that everyone is seeing that that increased irrigation is important. So a few things that have been working for Israel irrigation in the water sector. One is the use of alternative water resources. So this is, for example, water desalination. We have quite a long coast in Israel, the east coast of the Mediterranean, not nearly as much as in Greece, of course, which has a very large percentage of shore. We use Mediterranean salty water after treatment as drinking water, and our target, we've been increasing the amount of desalinated water, and the target for 2030 is very considerable. Apart from that, there's reuse of treated water, municipal treated water, which is providing nowadays almost half of the water for agricultural irrigation. And coupled with these two is also increased water use efficiency, which means that even though you have additional water from alternative water sources and reuse of water for irrigation, you still need to be very efficient using your water. One of the reasons for this is the prices of water in Israel are quite high. There's infrastructures which are governed by the government. The results are what we can see here. So over the last 50 years, from 1970 until last few years, this is showing the amount of water used for agriculture and the sources of the water. So you can see that we haven't been using more water since the 70s. We've been using a similar amount of water. The red line is the percentage of non-fresh water used. So we've been using treated wastewater, saline and flood water, and the percentage of fresh water used for agriculture is becoming lower and lower. All this time, agricultural production, the purple line is growing. So you have growth of agricultural production with stable use of water, which is called the decoupling between agricultural production and water use. So the water efficiency is growing. So just a short example, because our time is short. This is a small field on the edge of, on the southeastern edge of the Mediterranean. This is near the Gaza Strip, just a few kilometers off the Mediterranean Sea. And as you can see, this is desert land, pretty much desert land. There's very little organic matter in the soil. And this is going to be a potato field. How do we do this? So, credit for the photos to Anat Loengard. After preparing the soil, we have used this drip irrigation system, and you can see the little damp clots in the middle. So, and you can even see the beginning of little plants. And what's interesting is that only the root zone is getting the water. The whole of the field is staying dry. This is a few weeks later. You can see these are already grown potato plants, but between the rows and around the field zones, this is dry land. The land is completely dry. and it's growing wonderful potatoes, which is important food for our citizens, but it's also an export crop, which is sold mostly to Europe. One more example, because our time is short, a little bit north, but still close to the Mediterranean coast, we have this banana plantation. The soil is richer, and there are other problems. The problem here was damage from hail and damage from windstorms, which made the profit of the banana plantations very sensitive. And therefore, these areas were covered by netting. But what we've seen over the years, that this netting has not only prevented losses from extreme events, but it's also been improving the quality and the quantity of the produce, of the banana produce, while decreasing the water requirements. This netting has been allowing us to use 20% less water while getting more produce. This is another example of how to reach water efficiency. So some take-home messages. The future agriculture will be severely impacted by climate change and by other problems. Climate change mitigation is not enough. Agriculture has to adapt. Our Israel experience shows that sometimes shortage of resources can help to promote innovation. Water efficiency in Israel is linked to a few factors. It's water sector infrastructure, it's regulation, technology, but also agricultural practices. And that's all I have to say today. I'll be very happy if you contact me with any questions. This is my email on the first page here. And with this, I will say thanks for listening, and it's been a pleasure. Bye-bye.
Ευχαριστούμε πολύ. Πιστεύω ότι ήταν μια πολύ ωραία παρουσίαση, μια επιτυχημένη πρακτική που μας δίνει πολύ τροφή για σκέψη. Όπως πολύ σωστά είπε και ο κύριος Γκόρντον, μπορείτε να γράψετε στο email του ή να απευθυνθείτε στο επιμελητήριο για τυχόν ερωτήσεις.